My mother-in-law and sister-in-law have always called me plain. True, my appearance is modest. I keep my makeup minimal and choose simple clothing. But that's my choice. Ashley, are you wearing that outfit again? During my morning coffee, Patricia, my mother-in-law, dropped by as usual. At 58, she carries herself with remarkable elegance, always perfectly made up and wearing what appears to be an expensive dress. As a former high school teacher, she takes great pride in her family's educational background. Yes, I like it, I responded with a gentle smile. This exchange had become almost routine. My mother-in-law criticizes everything about me, my clothes, my makeup, how I keep house. She particularly enjoys making comments based on her prejudice about my lower-class background. My husband Michael teaches mathematics at the local middle school. He's a gentle, kind-hearted man. Officially, I work as an administrative assistant at his school. But in reality, that's still a secret I can't share with anyone. Really, why did Michael? My mother-in-law's words were cut short as my sister-in-law Vanessa walked in. She works part-time at a local boutique. Like her mother, she's critical of me, sometimes even more cutting with her words. Perhaps her inability to find a marriage partner fuels her attitude. Mom, look at Ashley wearing those cheap clothes again. Vanessa whispered, making sure I could hear. I quietly sipped my coffee. 7 years ago, I met Michael at a local education volunteer event. I was there as a volunteer for an educational support NPO, or so the story went. While my actual position was different, my passion for education was genuine. As Michael and I talked about children's futures, we naturally grew closer. After dating for a year, we decided to marry. However, when I revealed my true profession to Michael just before our wedding, he turned pale with shock. Ashley, I love you with all my heart. But, my family has been teachers for generations. Especially my mother, she takes such pride in being an educator. After much anguish, Michael made a request. Could you keep your true position secret, at least for now? Out of love for him, I agreed. 6 years have passed since then. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law live in our neighborhood and visit almost daily, never failing to criticize me. Michael gets caught in the middle each time, showing a pained expression. But in the end, he always prioritizes family tradition. That girl has lowered Michael's social standing, my mother-in-law's voice carries from the kitchen. Vanessa laughs in agreement. I continue washing dishes in silence. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law with their luxury brand bags and perfect makeup, and me in my simple clothes doing housework. On the surface, we might look like people from different social classes. But this is my choice. For love of my husband and peace in the family. Sometimes Michael looks at me apologetically. When he does, I try to give him a gentle smile. It's okay. True, this situation isn't ideal. But I have my reasons for being patient. Michael is a wonderful teacher who genuinely pours his heart into education. I deeply respect his dedication to his work. And above all, he loves me wholeheartedly. It shows in his everyday gestures and occasional tender glances. I return his love with equal depth. Though our surface-level peace sometimes feels heavy, I endure it. Lately, though, I've noticed things changing. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law have become bolder in their behavior. Just this morning, my mother-in-law described my breakfast as a lower-class cooking, dramatically covering her mouth. Vanessa giggled beside her. Michael awkwardly buried himself in his newspaper. I understand his conflict, though sometimes I wish he would defend me more. Well, it's fine. I have my own way of handling things. But watching my mother-in-law and sister-in-law lately, I can't shake the feeling they're plotting something. Saturday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. as usual, feeling the soft morning sunlight as I went about my chores. I had just finished scrubbing the kitchen tiles, watering the houseplants, and hanging the laundry. Everything had to be perfectly organized, or my mother-in-law would find something to criticize. I actually had an important board meeting scheduled today, but I'd already called my secretary with instructions. She would attend in my place. That early morning, I received an unexpected call from my mother-in-law. Unusually, her voice was cheerful. "Ashley, let's go out as a family today. Since it's the weekend, how about a hike to strengthen our bonds?" I couldn't believe my ears. My mother-in-law had rarely invited me anywhere before. "Yes, of course," I replied quietly. Michael was at school for weekend tutoring. I had secretly planned to catch up on company work today, but this might be a chance to improve family relations. The Whiteface Mountain Trail in the Adirondacks. The view is wonderful. My mother-in-law's voice was bubbling with enthusiasm. I could hear Vanessa in the background. Apparently, they had planned this together. At 9 a.m., when I arrived at the parking lot meeting spot, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were already waiting. The early summer breeze made it perfect hiking weather. The sky was crystal clear, with distant mountains standing in sharp relief. Young birch leaves swayed in the wind, and birdsong filled the air. It was a perfect weekend morning. "Oh, Ashley. That outfit is really..." As soon as I stepped out of my car, my mother-in-law frowned. I was wearing simple REI hiking wear. I thought it was functional and practical. In contrast, my mother-in-law wore the latest collection from the North Face, while my sister-in-law was dressed in stylish Lululemon athleisure wear. They looked like they were posing for a fashion magazine. As we entered the trail, we were surrounded by a tunnel of dense green trees. The early summer sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating beautiful shadow patterns on the ground, while lovely wildflowers dotted our path. A cool mountain breeze gently caressed our cheeks. It would have been an uplifting sight under normal circumstances. However, my mother-in-law and Vanessa showed no interest in nature's beauty. Instead, they were absorbed in taking selfies with their smartphones. "This spot is perfect for Instagram," they said, striking poses like professional models. Moss-covered rocks dotted the path, occasionally crossed by small streams. But they gave me no chance to enjoy these beautiful scenes. "You're walking too slowly. You're like a complete beginner. Why are you being so cautious?" Their criticism was relentless. I continued walking in silence. At lunchtime, I took out an organic sandwich from Whole Foods. My goodness, store-bought again? Can't you even make lunch boxes for your family? My mother-in-law proudly displayed her homemade sandwiches and fruit. They did look good. But I had my reasons. The sudden morning phone call had left me no time to prepare lunch. "I'm sorry. It was such short notice." "Always excuses. We know you're not good at housework," Vanessa interjected spitefully. I silently bit into my sandwich. We reached the observation deck around 2 p.m. After 3 hours of hiking, my forehead was lightly beaded with sweat. In contrast, my mother-in-law and Vanessa somehow maintained perfect makeup, looking as if they hadn't broken a sweat. Sitting on the rest area bench, the valley view below was breathtaking. An endless carpet of deep green forest stretched out, with a lake glittering in the sunlight in the distance. I found myself lost in the scenery. Actually, this place held another significance. It was being considered as a potential site for a new resort development by my company. This coincidental a visit had unexpectedly allowed me to assess the land's potential firsthand. Ashley. My mother-in-law's voice pulled me from my thoughts. A malicious smile played on her face. We're heading back in the car. You can walk back. What? I couldn't help but exclaim. We were alone at the observation deck's rest area. It's a perfect opportunity for someone as out of shape as you, isn't it? Vanessa smiled maliciously. It should take about 5 hours. Enjoy the scenery. The two of them were about to leave with my car keys, giggling to themselves. Despite the situation, I maintained my composure while letting out a deep sigh. Fine by me. My unexpected response seemed to throw them off briefly. But they soon resumed their malicious smiles and got into my car. After making sure their car sounds had faded away, I took out my smartphone. Taking a deep breath, I slowly dialed a number. Jane? Yes, it's me. Could I request special transportation? My secretary responded immediately on the other end, her voice as calm and capable as always. Please arrange all Winter Group vehicles. Yes, that special fleet. I continued giving quiet instructions while gazing toward town from the mountaintop. In the distance, skyscrapers gleamed like tiny jewels. No one in that city center knows who I really am. I took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. The view from the observation deck felt like it was overlooking my life. As I watched my mother-in-law's car disappear in the distance, I carefully chose my words. I want to make quite an entrance. It seems the time has come to reveal everything. After hanging up, I began walking the hiking course with a light step. No need to hide anymore. Today, all my patience would finally pay off. At 6:30 p.m., as the summer sun began to set, an unusual atmosphere descended upon our quiet residential neighborhood. The shadows of street trees stretched long, and the western sky was turning a pale orange. As maple leaves swayed in the evening breeze and sweet flower scents wafted through this peaceful twilight scene, the first change began with a sound. A low, steady engine rumble approached from the distance. As it grew louder, a jet-black Rolls-Royce Phantom appeared, its body reflecting the sunset like a living creature. Following it came a pearl-white Bentley Continental GT, a deep blue Maybach, and a crimson Ferrari Portofino. Then a Lamborghini Urus, Bentley Flying Spur, and Porsche Panamera appeared one after another, turning the street into a luxury car showroom. Each vehicle was perfectly polished, their chrome parts reflecting light like jewels. The tires were spotless, and their body curves displayed artistic beauty. This parade of luxury vehicles created an almost surreal atmosphere in this suburban neighborhood. The neighbors' reactions began almost in slow motion. First, the Johnsons at 201 stopped their gardening, their lawnmower suddenly silent. At 203, the Browns' curtains fluttered slightly, suggesting someone peeking out. Mrs. Williams, out walking with her young son, stopped in her tracks, wearing an expression of disbelief. "Mommy, look at those amazing cars." "Shh, Jamie. Don't point." Everyone watched this extraordinary scene with bated breath. No one could believe what was unfolding in front of the house of what they thought was a simple teacher's wife. My mother-in-law Patricia and sister-in-law Vanessa were already standing in front of my house. They had returned in my car and were waiting by the entrance with crossed arms and malicious smiles. They were probably expecting to see me crawl back exhausted. Vanessa was still holding the supermarket eco bag they had spitefully intended for me to carry. But now, their arrogant expressions were frozen like ice. Their malicious smiles had vanished, replaced by looks of shock. Patricia's face, in particular, had turned pale. The luxurious convoy parked in a perfect fan formation in front of my house, with military-like precision. This wasn't coincidence, but carefully calculated positioning. The door of the central black Rolls-Royce Phantom opened slowly, cutting through the still air. A chauffeur in black quickly stepped out and reached for the rear door. His movements showed years of trained elegance. His white-gloved hand respectfully held the door. I stepped out slowly. There stood a version of me that no one had ever seen before. Gone was the modest administrative assistant's attire. Instead, an Hermès tailored jacket softly gleamed in the sunset. Chanel pumps, though understated, radiated unmistakable quality. My hair was perfectly styled up, my makeup flawless. Yet nothing was flashy. I exuded the natural elegance of someone born into the upper class. This is... Vanessa's voice trembled. The eco bag fell from her hands. Beside her, Patricia covered her mouth with her hand, frozen like a statue. One by one, suited chauffeurs emerged from the luxury cars, bowing deeply to me. "Welcome back, Madam President," their voices quietly dissolved into the evening air. The neighbors' gazes concentrated on me like spotlights. Everyone was speechless at the transformation of the person they knew as a modest administrative assistant. Children pointed excitedly while adults suppressed gasps of surprise. The gossip-loving Mrs. Davis was already whispering on her phone to someone. "Could it be you?" Patricia's voice was thin and trembling. Her face showed confusion and agitation unlike anything I'd seen before. She looked as if she was watching the world order crumble before her eyes. The sunset reflected off the cars, making them shine like jewels. The last rays of sun reflected off the Maybach's hood, while the Bentley's chrome parts gleamed like fire. I walked slowly toward my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. The sound of my heels echoed in the quiet street. Click, click. That sound alone gave a sense of reality to this surreal scene. Cicadas chirped in the distance as the early summer evening air gently enveloped us. "I'm home." I smiled calmly as I spoke. The same voice, the same expression. But the presence behind those words was completely different from before. This was the real me, hidden for 6 years. The true self I had suppressed out of consideration for my mother-in-law's respect for educational tradition. Vanessa dropped the supermarket eco bag she had taken from my car as if it were a poisonous snake. Just hours ago, she had maliciously said, "Why don't you use this to walk back?" Now those words rang completely hollow. "Is this the real you?" Patricia's voice was barely audible. In her eyes, I could see fear, confusion, and something else, probably regret, mixed together. Her expression suggested years of educational pride crumbling loudly before the reality in front of her. I nodded silently. Around us, 10 luxury cars still maintained their dignified presence, lined up in perfect order. Their presence had completely transformed the atmosphere of this quiet residential area. Even the distant sound of barking dogs seemed more subdued than usual. "Let's talk inside." I spoke quietly. There was still much to discuss. But first, inside the house. Our important family conversation couldn't take place here, exposed to the curious eyes of neighbors. The twilight sky deepened to a darker purple. Street lights began turning on one by one, and the luxury car's LED headlights illuminated in sequence. Their light gently enveloped us, as if quietly watching over the beginning of our new family story. The atmosphere in the living room felt heavy, as if time had stopped. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, seated on the sofa, still looked unable to accept reality. Outside the window, the line of luxury cars stood silently in the moonlight. Now, let me tell you about who I really am. I began speaking quietly. On the living room table lay documents prepared by my secretary, my Harvard Business School valedictorian diploma, my Wall Street Journal cover interview, Forbes 30 Under 30 feature. I graduated top of my class from Harvard Business School and became the youngest vice president of Winter Group Investments at age 26. Currently, I serve as the company's executive vice chairman. My mother-in-law's hands trembled. Before her lay a document showing my annual salary, $8 million. Several dozen times what she earned as a teacher. Why did you hide this? Patricia's voice revealed more confusion than anger. I took a deep breath and began sharing words I had kept in my heart for 6 years. I have deep respect for education as a profession. Mother, your pride as an educator, the Wilson family's generations of teaching tradition, these are truly admirable. However, there are various ways to contribute to society. Creating new value through investments, generating employment, enriching people's lives, this is the path I've chosen. You didn't need to hide. No. But Michael felt differently. At that moment, we heard the front door open. Michael rushed in, breathless, probably having returned after receiving calls from neighbors. His face was pale, likely having seen the line of luxury cars and guessed what had happened. Let me explain, Michael said. He took a deep breath and began slowly. Just before our wedding, Ashley told me everything. But His voice trembled. I know how Mom has always believed in the power of education and preached the importance of steady effort. Sis, too, has lived by these values. We've always believed that the joy of nurturing people, not money or status, is the greatest reward. So when I learned Ashley's true identity, I became afraid. I worried that Mom would be disappointed, that our family's values would crumble. Michael knelt and bowed deeply before his mother. It was my weakness that made me ask Ashley to hide her status. It was my foolish decision, unable to acknowledge her talents and efforts. The room fell silent. Surprisingly, it was Vanessa who broke the silence. We were the foolish ones. Tears welled up in her eyes. We never tried to see Ashley's true worth, judging her only by appearances, being so mean to her. Patricia, too, began speaking with a trembling voice. I thought I had a good eye for people, as an educator. But that was just arrogance. I quietly stood up and took out new documents. Actually, today's hike led to an unexpected discovery. I spread out maps and development plans. The view from that observation deck was magnificent. Winter Group has been considering a new resort development that combines nature and education. Today, I found the perfect location. The development plan included a nature-based educational facility, a place where children could learn and grow in nature. Mother, would you consider overseeing the educational programs for this project? Patricia looked at me with disbelief. You want me? But your 40 years of educational experience would be invaluable for this project. I believe we can create something wonderful together. 1 year later, in early summer, Forest Academy Resort opened in the Adirondacks. Patricia serves as the Director of Educational Programs, fully utilizing her experience and passion. Her programs have already caught the attention of educators across the country. Vanessa has found her calling in the resort's hospitality division. Her natural sociability has unexpectedly blossomed in this new role. Ashley, look. One holiday, Patricia excitedly called out to me. In the resort's nature classroom, children were listening intently to her lesson, their eyes sparkling with interest. I never knew education could be this free and joyful. Her eyes held a sparkle I'd never seen before. Michael continues teaching mathematics at the local school. But now he takes pride in his chosen path. Sometimes he brings his students to the resort. On the last Sunday of each month, we share a family meal together. Not at an expensive restaurant or fancy dinner, but around our dining table, each of us contributing a dish we've prepared. Ashley. One day, Patricia spoke to me softly. Thank you for forgiving us that day. Without your generosity, we wouldn't have this happiness now. Outside the window, flowers swayed in full bloom. Beyond them, we could see the resort we had built together. Mother, I'm grateful too. I'm truly happy that we've become a real family. The resort's forest glowed golden in the sunset. There, our new story, where new values and tradition had merged, was surely taking root.